Alright guys, Effortless Roller here. We putting up the birds in the wind. This right here is the lime kit. Man, they're coming alive. Oh, look at that, they're coming alive. Guys, they are still very young, okay? This is still a very young kit. Very young. And the potential that they're showing now, man, they are really shining. Good frequency, good depth. They fly good pattern as well. It's windy right now, so the birds are fighting the wind, but they're doing everything right. you know I've called a few out of this kit already, but I've kept majority of them together. I didn't really switch up anything on them. I am going straight wheat now because they were flying a little high, and yeah, started changing up the feed a little bit on them. We got some funky weather here in Minnesota right now, but I figure, see, look, they're pretty active right now. And yes, sometimes the night will be freezing, like 26, 16 degrees overnight, but during the day it's like 36, 42, 50. So it's like throwing off the birds, because they're like, you feed them up, and then you fly them, and they're burning all that energy keeping warm at night, and then during the day it's like hot, so then the birds don't want to eat. So it's like, well, what do? You kind of have to feed them up so that they can handle the cold at night, and then of course during the day when the heat's going, they get some sort of, I guess, energy to keep warm. But yeah, guys, like, man, this has been so funky here with the weather, and it's just hard to maintain a good diet for them. But I don't know about you guys. Let's talk about diet, guys. I do not feed a flat portion rate of feed, meaning I don't just always go 50-50, even though majority of it might be 50-50. I kind of change it up depending on what the birds are showing me. If they're already strong on the wings, I don't really need to feed them up to fly long. But when they're young birds, I want them to fly long. At least 30 minutes. At least 30 minutes. But look at that. See, look at that. Oh, young birds, I tell you. These are young birds. And they're doing things up there. So I am liking what I'm seeing with this kit. They turn out to be a really good kit. And I didn't, like I said, I hate flying mixed families. But the birds are not quite 6 months yet. I always say when they get matured, then you start seeing more problems with them. But we will see. There's also talk about like birds that naturally they will kit. So naturally the birds will continue to do well. But technically, when you get up to a certain age and the bird matures, their traits do show up. So who knows how lockdown will look like. I don't know if I'm gonna lock this kid down. I might just continue flying them, but man, I am liking them though. And there's a few in there that will be good for competition. But man, look at that. They went back up. They see the the crows coming through. But yeah, like this kid is not boring to watch anymore. There's a few birds in there that are flipping, but there's a few in there that's coming in to roll real good. So, I'm happy with it. But yeah, let's go back with diet. I don't feed a certain diet. My diets always change. And it's mainly just wheat and Milo, but I change it, the ration, depending on what the birds are doing and what they are showing me in the sky. Because if all they want to do is fly real quick up high and come down low and then land, that means they don't have enough energy. So I'm changing it up. I'm gonna give them a little more wheat now. Wheat definitely gives a bird a little more energy to fly. So that's what I do. I change it up every time. So, and if they're flying too low and they won't go up, then I gotta switch it up, so that they fly a good height. And I'm always playing a little bit with the feed. Now, last year I challenged myself to fly at around like noon to 4 o'clock. Okay, I'm home most of the days, so I challenged myself to do that. And the reason why I did that was because usually in the summertime, that's the hottest time of the day, or something's always different, with midday flies. You don't get that calm wind, you don't get none of that fancy stuff. It's always a challenge. And like I said, I challenged myself to fly my birds in the heat of the day. And I've kind of learned something, is that you have to feed your birds. Whoa, no rolling on my head, over my head, guys. You have to feed your birds accordingly, so that they can control what they do. And not only that, but they're not starving. And if you want them to perform, the feed and everything is different. What I find also is that like, you can't give them a full meal after they land. You have to feed them in the evening, when it's nice and cool. But to trap them in, you have to feed them. So I'll trap them in, and then I will, like, give them their water, and then I will give them a full feeding afterwards, but in the evening. And yes, it does get time consuming, but you also don't give them all to eat as well, because you're going to fly them the following day as well. So the following day, if you're going to fly them every day, you're not going to give them a full meal, but you will give them enough to not be hungry overnight. And I play around with feed quite a bit. Like, when's a good time to give it to them? Like you and I, we can eat the same food, but we both could perform differently because of the time frame we decide to eat. You know what I mean? Like, if I decide, oh, you know what, I'm gonna have a big meal at breakfast, I can't expect to perform. Sorry, I'm closing the kit box here until the windows and close the door on them. But you can't eat a big meal at breakfast and then expect to do your best performance in the evening. It just doesn't work. By evening time, you're gonna be hungry. So if you're feeding birds at a certain amount of time of the day, you cannot expect them to perform well, at a certain time. Plain and simple. So if you're gonna feed your birds and you're gonna fly them, let's say morning time, okay? And let's say you give them a full meal at night the following day. Well, guess what? In the morning, they're going to be full of food. They're going to be groggy. Who wants to work out after a full meal? Nobody does, right? So that's how you got to look at it. So it's not that, I think a lot of people think there's like a secret recipe, to feeding birds. But really, it's about timing when to feed your birds. Yeah? And to me, if you know how to time it right, your birds will do fine. But here's the thing too. A lot of guys like to do the change right when competition comes. And I noticed that when you first do it, your birds will shut down. They don't know how to react. Their body's like, what the heck is going on? Like, he's never fed me in the afternoon. So today he decides to feed me in the afternoon. I mean, my body's gonna be like, what the heck's going on? My body's not gonna react towards that. It's just like, if one day you just decide to wake up and you say, you know what, 3 a.m., I'm gonna start hitting the gym and pushing, maxing out and everything. Well, guess what? Your body ain't gonna do it. It might take you a while to get there. It might take a while longer for your body to react and wake up. But you're not gonna be at your peak performance. And of course, if your body's not used to eating food that early, you're not gonna be digesting well. It's gonna take a minute for your body to adjust. So, it's not really about what you feed. Is what I'm finding out. So feed doesn't matter to me. It does not matter what you feed. I mean, it does and it doesn't. But the main thing is that is when you feed them. Okay, what time are you gonna feed them? Okay, most times competition is coming up. You usually know what kind of time frame you're gonna be flying. You're gonna be flying midday. You're gonna be flying early morning. Mid-afternoon, late afternoon, whatever. You kind of have an idea when you're gonna fly. So you do prep up your birds for it. And like in 2021, my comp team got chased 3 days before we flew the nationals. I lost that kid and I was pretty devastated. I had majority of my cockbirds left on my other team. So being that I already entered, I had 3 days to get those cockbirds ready. I put them up, and they didn't really want to commit, but I had them change their feed. I had to change them to the feed because I was flying. I think it was like 11 that day. I think the judge and the RD showed up way early. I think it was like 9 o'clock. They showed up. My birds were not ready for it. I was still cooking food because I was doing a party for my daughter, and my birds weren't ready. But I knew my cockbirds wasn't gonna. They weren't gonna score me big because I just knew it. I've been flying them. I knew, like that my kit that I was gonna fly for the national was way more active, way more in tune with performance. I knew for a fact the cockbirds were starting to eat a lot. Because wintertime I start upping their feed for the cold, and I knew the cockbirds were very strong. So all they wanted to do was breed. Their mindset was breeding. Their mindset was trying to like find a mate. So I already knew hands down that it was a lose situation for me because I already upped the feed for like 2-3 weeks. The birds didn't even care to fly. They wanted to just chase tails, so there was no way that I was going to get this cock kit ready, for a competition. So I was just like, the judge came there like, you guys, do you want to fly? And I was like, no, because, my birds were fed to fly at 11. I'm 2 hours ahead. So I'm like, no, because, knowing that what I did, I think the best performance will come to them afterwards. Yeah. Okay, I'm coming. Yeah, and so I ended up, you know what? I already knew these cockbirds were ready to chase tails. They weren't ready. They weren't focused to fly. I flew them for 3 days. I knew exactly what their minds were at. They wanted, as soon as they came down, all they did was just sit on the roof and chase hens. That's all they were doing, was just chasing. And so, I knew for a fact their mindset was not ready for competition. So, I was like, the hell with it. You know what? Let's put them up. So we put them up early. The birds did not fly well like I anticipated. They were still, their bodies were not used to it. They weren't used to it. I didn't blame them. I knew they were going to land early. I think they flew for like 12 minutes and they landed. And I knew they weren't going to, do much because the cockbirds just didn't want to lift. They didn't want to lift. They were down low. They just kept playing around. So sorry guys, I'm trying to keep my birds off the ground here. But yeah, my girl's crying for me, so I gotta get going, cutting it short. But guys, like, it doesn't matter what you feed your birds. what matters is when you feed them, is what I'm trying to get at. And that's kind of what I found out, you know. And who knows if it's like I said, it does matter what you feed them as far as green goes, but at the same time it really doesn't. And what matters is that if you time it correctly, you get a better performance out of your birds. So give it a shot, you know. Like, if you don't believe me, go for it, give it a shot, tell me what your experience is. Because, you know, like I said, I like to share my opinions, I like to share my experiences. And I've been playing with feed, timing of when I want to feed and timing of when I want to fly. And I've noticed that if I can time it right, man, there's a certain window that you could get it to do right. But all right, guys, Effortless Roller, we out.